Hey, welcome. We are live with another episode of the Hormone Optimization Masterclass here at Rebel Health. And my microphone is working, and I am your host, Michael. I am joined for this one with someone new to our community here, Miss Nikki Williams. Nikki, welcome.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm always excited. We've been doing this a long time, and I'm always excited when we have a new face and a new expert to share with our audience. And I reached out to see if you'd be interested in doing this, and here we are. And I'm happy. I saw you on a different hormone-related event. I think it was probably late last year. I'm not sure, but thought that would be a great topic for our upcoming masterclass. So we're going to talk about hormone optimization, especially related to 4 specific hormones, right?
We are, yeah.
Okay. And before we get started, I'll give a little intro, a little bio. For Nikki, after failing to find any medical help for her own health issues, this is a very common story that we're hearing quite often from the experts in this event and everything else that we've done. She had health issues in her early 40s. Unable to find the medical help she needed, she discovered that she could turn things around using diet, lifestyle, and natural supplements. Nikki's now an award-winning nutritionist, author, speaker, and leading expert in women's health and hormones, and the founder of Happy Hormones for Life, helping women of all ages to rebalance their hormones, reclaim their health, and feel better than ever. And she's also the author of It's Not You, It's Your Hormones, the essential guide for women over 40 to fight fat, fatigue, and hormone havoc. I think your story is the story of about 80% of practitioners and experts that I've ever interviewed.
Yeah.
In that you were having your own challenges, you didn't get any help, you went down the rabbit hole, you found your own solutions, and then it just becomes obvious and apparent that sharing this information and helping other people is the best way to make use of it, right?
Oh, completely, yeah. I was in a job that I wasn't feeling any fulfillment with, needed a change, and this was I just got obsessed with hormones. I wanted to share it with the world.
Were your, if you don't mind sharing it, were your health issues that you were reversing, were they hormone related?
Yeah, they were, but I didn't realize that at the time. So I was going through perimenopause in my early 40s, but this was 15 years ago when the word perimenopause didn't exist, and I'd never heard of it. And so I didn't know what the hell was going on. My doctor didn't know either. I tried to give me antidepressants. That is a tale that most women have gone through as well.
It's all in your head.
Yeah, you're getting older, to your hormones or whatever. But luckily for me, I have my dad at the time, and he only just retired at 81, but he's a hormone doctor, and he'd been a hormone doctor for 50 odd years. Of course, I didn't know what that was because I didn't have any interest in it at all. I had no knowledge. So he basically gave me the education that I didn't get at school or through the medical world. And luckily for me, I was able to learn that and turn things around for myself. But, not every woman has that. So that's where I felt like it was my role now to teach women what they don't know and then how to empower themselves to feel better.
Brilliant. And no, unfortunately, not every woman has a dad that's a hormone doctor for 50 years. That's a pretty serendipitous outcome there. So I'm glad that you did, and I'm glad that you've turned it into this. So I'll just get out of the way here and let you get started with the presentation.
Okay, so let's get started. What I would love to cover today is how to know if what you're going through is actually your hormones, why it's important to address this now, and also, what are the treatment options and the natural options, the 4 simple steps that we use a lot in our clinic to help women to rebalance and reclaim their health. You've done a great introduction. I don't need to go any further than that. I'm also a mum of 2 adults now. When I was going through the troubles that I was talking to you about, they were young then, sort of 6 and 8. So, the usual juggling plates and trying to do everything back then was definitely contributing to my issues. My book is It's Not You, It's Your Hormones. Thank you for mentioning that. What I go through today is obviously in a lot more depth in the book. So I'm just doing a little kind of snippet, short overview, summary of what I talk about in the book. I mentioned my 40s, early 40s, pretty much hit round about the age of 42, felt like I'd been hit by a train. I was exhausted, stressed out, gaining weight, really grumpy to be around. And every day felt a little bit like walking through treacle. And it was just a long, long to-do list. I had a really responsible job, lots of deadlines, work. I'd come home from work, long commute as well to work. I was driving like an hour and a half every day in traffic. And then I'd get home, I'd need to look after the kids, get them fed, clear up, do all the usual things we have to do, and then get back to work again in the evening to get ready for the next day. And it was just exhausting. And I had all these other things as well. I mean, I coped with that pretty well in my 20s and 30s. But as I was getting into my 40s, I really wasn't coping very well at all. I went to my doctor and all he could offer me was Prozac, which is the antidepressant of the day. And here's my lovely dad. This is a while ago now, but luckily I had him to turn to. I went to my doctor. I rang my dad straight after the appointment and I said, Dad, I don't know anything about this, but my doctor wants to put me on Prozac. And he said, no, Nick, there's no history of depression in our family. You've never had it before. And I kind of intuitively felt that it wasn't depression. And he said, you're going through perimenopause. There's that word. And, that's the first time I'd ever heard that word. And he helped me work out what was going on in my body and how we actually did do some tests as well, because I kind of was very skeptical and I didn't really understand. So getting them tested actually showed me on paper how bad they were and actually motivated me to do something. And then he showed me how to look after my hormones, which obviously I wasn't doing. And honestly, with a few tweaks to my diet, lifestyle and supplements, it wasn't rocket science, but they were very targeted changes. And within a few weeks, I felt so much better. My energy was coming back. My brain fog was lifting. My moods were so much better. And even some of the belly fat that I'd accumulated was starting to shift. Cut a long story short, I gave up my stressful, busy corporate job. I went back to college and because I just went down the rabbit hole of hormones, got fascinated. And now, since then, I have been running Happy Hormones for the last 10 years. Of course, I'm not perfect. My favourite foods are chocolate, coffee and wine. And I'm not going to feel deprived, and I don't think anyone should be deprived. My programs and my work is all about nourishment and always an 80-20 kind of balance so that we don't feel deprived, we don't feel like we're missing out. And there's always a little bit of room for your favourite things, whatever they may be, as long as you're kind of, doing it in a healthy way. And certainly, most of all, that you're not feeling guilty about it, because that's just stressful. So firstly, how do you know if it's your hormones? You might feel you're too young, you're too old, or it's something to do with your genes. And your doctor may even have told you there's nothing wrong with you or offered medication that you don't need, just like mine did. So this is the kind of typical hormone journey of a woman. Every single woman's different. So it's not going to be exact, but this is typical. So from pre-puberty through reproduction, hormones are generally behaving themselves and working well. They're at their best optimal levels because they're getting your body ready to have a baby, whether you want one or not. And then from the age of around, your mid-30s onwards, generally ovulation starts to get a little bit more irregular as your egg reserve starts to run out. And your hormones are going to start to fluctuate and generally decline. Now, this is the transition period that we know now is perimenopause. And then menopause itself, we classify it here in the UK as a year after your last period. The average age here in the UK is around 51, 52. And then you're post-menopausal. Now, hormones can be out of balance at any stage of our lives, and we're going to be talking about that today. Obviously, natural menopause is around the early 50s, but we can have POV, premature ovarian failure, at any age, surgical menopause through hysterectomy or other surgery, and then, of course, medical treatment as well can trigger menopause too. So obviously, there's lots of different cases, but this is your kind of typical hormone journey as a woman. And then this is what your hormones are doing during those times. So we've got progesterone here in blue and then estrogen in red. And as you can see, they're nicely balanced during the reproductive years. There's a nice ratio, and that's the ratio that happens throughout the month. And it's pretty consistent and pretty steady. As soon as you hit the perimenopause, that's when things start to change. So progesterone declines quite rapidly because it's only produced when you ovulate. So if you're having to or you're skipping ovulation, then you're not going to be producing it as much. So progesterone declines quite rapidly, but then estrogen goes on its own little roller coaster before it settles down. So you can see there in the red and the blue how different that ratio is, and that can cause many of the common symptoms of perimenopause. And then as you go through menopause, progesterone kind of flattens out, and then estrogen comes down as well, and it settles. Now, obviously, this is another sort of typical journey, but it doesn't take into account, obviously, HRT or anything else you're doing in terms of medication. But we talk, when we talk about hormone imbalances, we're often focusing on the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. But when I started studying hormones, I was blown away by how many of them there are. There are roughly over 100 identified hormones, and probably more that we don't know about. And every single hormone has a job to do. And you may have heard of some of these already, but there's quite a few on there that I certainly hadn't heard about. In essence, they are basically our communication system. So they are chemical messengers that flow through every part of us, telling our cells what to do. And they've all got a different job. So it's not surprising as we age, things can go a bit wrong. And certainly as we go through any hormone fluctuations, they're all affected. It's like an orchestra, all playing their own instrument. And then when one's slightly off tune, the whole sound is affected. So we can get different symptoms from lots of different areas. So rather than go into all 100 hormones, what I started to notice when I was studying hormones was that these 4 were coming up again and again, and they seemed to be the ones that were sort of in control of how we feel and how our health generally. The ones that certainly regulate our weight, our energy, our metabolism, our mood, and so much more. So I thought it was really important to stress that these 4 are the ones that we really need to think about and be aware of and know about so that we can actually do something about it. So that would empower us to be able to get them working together, because as you can see, they're all interconnected. And if any one of them's out of balance, it can affect the other one. And they all have quite a few simple symptoms that I'm going to take you through so that you can start to sort of see which ones you might need to start focusing on. The first one is cortisol. This is your biggest stress hormone, and it's number 1 for a reason. It's by far the biggest hormone disruptor. So if you're under constant stress, which many of us are in this modern day, your adrenals are going to be pumping out cortisol to basically keep you alive. It might sound a bit dramatic, but that's the system that our ancestors relied on to keep them alive back in the days when they were being attacked by lions. It's our fight or flight sympathetic nervous response. But, our world has changed from those days, but our system hasn't. It's the same system. It's the same fight or flight that kicks in. Our brains can't distinguish between a lion attack and a traffic jam or a work deadline or an argument with somebody. It's going to kick in your fight or flight response in either situation. So cortisol is great in the right amounts. We need it to wake up, to be alert, for the brain to function properly. But when we are in constant stress mode, that's when it becomes a problem, because too much cortisol over time can have a big effect on your health, and especially your hormones. Here are some of the symptoms of a cortisol imbalance. You might feel wired, overwhelmed, brain foggy, tired, with sort of ups and downs, tired, not maybe flat out exhausted, but you can feel that as well. Mood swings, your sleep might be affected, you might have more anxiety. You might have frequent colds because cortisol suppresses your immune system over time. You might have that belly fat that just won't shift. There are many other symptoms of a cortisol imbalance, but these are the ones I kind of see more and more often. The next hormone is insulin. So this is your blood sugar regulator, but I like to think of it as your fat storing hormone because it's mainly doing that most of the day. Obviously, it's taking excess sugar from your blood when you eat food. It's taking that to your cells to use as energy. But, when we're not running or fighting after a meal, then we don't necessarily need that extra energy, especially if we've had a meal or a snack before that. And that glucose gets stored away as fat. Now, especially after 40, during perimenopause, we just can't handle the carbs like we used to. We're much less insulin sensitive, much more insulin resistant. So it's going to have a bigger effect. And too much insulin over time can lead to a host of issues, because it promotes inflammation, and you're more at risk of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and cancer if it's not addressed. So that is why us nutritionists bang on about balancing your blood sugar, because it's not just a case of getting you through the day without snacking. It's also much more important in terms of long-term health. So these are some of the things to look out for if you've got a blood sugar imbalance or you've got a lot of insulin running around, and you might be at risk of insulin resistance. An expanding waist. So we tend to do a measurement of waist to hip ratio. So if your waist is bigger than your hips, generally, I'm not going to go into the exact ratio, but generally if your waist is bigger than your hips, if you measure it, you are looking at potentially a bit of insulin resistance there. So that's something that you need to look out for. If you're feeling that sort of mid-afternoon slump during the day, which many of us do, might be a blood sugar dip, and you might be having to look at your diet. What are you having for breakfast and lunch, so you avoid that. Those hangry moments when you're just a mixture of hungry and angry, we've all had those. Mood swings, 3 a.m. is insomnia. Many women tell me they wake up between 2 and 4 in the middle of the night, can't go back to sleep again, don't understand why they're waking up. And there are many reasons to be waking up at that time, but one of them could be a blood sugar dip, because when the blood sugar goes down too much, cortisol is released because it's a stress on the body, and cortisol will wake you up. So looking at your diet during the day can often be helpful there. Heavy or painful periods if you're still having a cycle, sugar cravings, carb cravings, or if you feel like dizzy before eating, or if you try and skip a meal, you just can't because you're just feeling a bit weak and dizzy. Number 3 of the feisty 4 is thyroid. Now, thyroid is your metabolism regulator. I like to think of it as a thermostat for your body, so like a switch on your metabolism, or your energy. So too many thyroid hormones production will switch your cellular energy up, and that could be, make you hyper or anxious or sweaty or palpitations. But for many women over 40, it's doing the opposite. So we're not producing enough thyroid hormones, and I'm talking about active thyroid hormones, that it feels like your thermostat's going down, and you just don't have enough energy for the whole body, because thyroid affects every cell in the body from head to toe. So it can slow everything down from, your hair growth, so your hair might fall out, to your general energy, to your brain function, because your brain's not getting enough energy, so it can cause depression and anxiety, brain fog, memory loss, and right down to your digestion and constipation, joint pain, circulation, everything. So it's a very, very important hormone. And when you look at the symptoms, actually, a lot of them can mimic the perimenopause symptoms. So I do say to women, make sure if you're in perimenopause, if you're over 40, get your thyroid properly checked, because if it is your thyroid, it may not be menopause, and you may be put on HRT when it's actually your thyroid. So really, really important to distinguish what's going on, because a lot of these symptoms can cross over. So this is thyroid. I've mentioned quite a few of them, but the weight gain as well, because your metabolism is going to be really slow too. Cold temperature, cold hands and feet. I've always got cold hands and feet because my thyroid is kind of pretty much borderline. Dry skin, puffy skin, hair loss, that kind of stuff. So get your thyroid checked properly. But there are some natural ways you can support it as well, which we'll come on to. And then last of your feisty 4 is estrogen, your main sex hormone. It works with progesterone. The two of them, as I showed you, are nicely balanced in your fertile years, generally, not always. And stress will have a big impact if they're not, by the way. And then from your mid-30s, your levels start to decline and fluctuate. And it's the fluctuations that can produce quite a few symptoms. And you'll get symptoms of high or low estrogen, depending on, what's going on for you. And it can also alternate. So you can have some or all of these symptoms, or a mixture of the two, depending on where you are in that journey. So lots of low estrogen, because estrogen is very lubricating. It makes your skin nice and plump. It It helps your hair growth and your brain function and your heart. So all of those symptoms on the left can happen when you have generally low estrogen. But then you can mix that with high estrogen, which can be also a problem because that might result in bloating, heavy bleeding, cramps, weight gain, and all those symptoms as well. So we don't want to be in either camp. We want to be nicely balanced in the middle. Then there's lots of different ways we can try and get there. So just have a little think about where you are with those symptoms and just make sure that you're covering each of them. And then if you can get a rough idea from those symptoms, but like I said, lots of symptoms cross over with each other. So it is a really good idea if you can get some testing done. Obviously, that's not always available or accessible, but these are the kind of tests that are available that can be helpful in trying to work out which of your hormones are playing up. And if you don't address hormone imbalances now, they're generally not going to go away. They could put you at higher risk of more serious conditions down the line too. So we know that hormone imbalance is at the root of all osteoporosis, heart disease, stroke, dementia, obesity, diabetes, and some cancers. So we want to make sure they're nicely balanced as much as possible in this day and age. There is good news. You can regain control of these feisty 4 hormones, and I'm just going to show you how now. So firstly, there is medical support, and medical support is getting so much better than it used to be in terms of women's health and hormones. I in the early days, I didn't get much medical support, but these days there is a lot more awareness around. We've still got a long way to go, but awareness on social media and on the internet generally is good now. And many doctors are catching up with the knowledge that they need to help women during this really vital time. HRT has come a long way as well. Hormone replacement therapy can definitely help, but it can only help when you're needing estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. There are only 3 of the hormones that are generally replaced. So if you have an imbalance in those other feisty 4, thyroid, cortisol, or insulin, it's not going to do anything for those. So even if you are on HRT, you still need to be looking after your health, your nutrition, your lifestyle, and potentially taking some supplements to help you with all those other hormones as well. So we're not just talking about the sex hormones. Just a word on HRT. It has changed a huge amount since the days of the early 2000s. We used to only have synthetic hormones in the medical world, plus the bioidentical hormone market, which was always private and very expensive. We have now in the UK and Europe, I think we have we call it body identical here in the UK, that is available on our NHS, and I'm not quite sure what the situation is in the US, but we've come a long way in terms of natural hormone replacement. We are not reliant on synthetic hormones as much now. We have transdermal estrogen, such as the patch and the gel. I know we have a spray now that's available to us. We have micronized progesterone, which is natural progesterone, not progestins. We have local vaginal estrogen creams and pessaries available, and we have testosterone for those who need it as well. Again, speak to a doctor about all of this and make sure you get the right advice because it can be a bit of a minefield in terms of knowledge and awareness out there. So even if you are on HRT or any medical support, you will still need to look after the rest of your hormones, as I mentioned. So there are lots of natural approaches that I'll run through. Now, I've actually created a code for happy hormones because hormones need good nutrients to work well. They need you to have some rest time. They need a good environment, clean environment, and they need you to be moving. So I'm going to touch on each of these to give you a little bit more detail. So step 1 is eat. This is where we start to think about food as information and not just calories, because food either feeds or disrupts your hormones. Your body is not a bank account. It's not calories in, calories out. It's a chemistry lab. So we focus on the message that food has for your body and not necessarily the calories it's containing. So what do we eat? Well, there is no one size fits all diet for your hormones, but there are some general principles for most people. And I am very aware that there's lots, you need to experiment on your own body, because lots of us respond differently to different types of foods, and we'll all have different intolerances, etc. But for most people, it's some form of the Mediterranean diet. Real food, we've got to stay away from processed as much as possible, with plenty of good organic quality protein and healthy fats. These two things, the protein and the healthy fats, are super important because, as I said, we don't tolerate carbs as well as we used to. So we've got to be careful with our carbs, and we're eating the right ones. But the protein and healthy fats will fill you up. They won't spike your blood sugar as much. And they are really, really important building blocks for your hormones. And the healthy carbs that we're looking for are the low GL carbs, like fruit and veg, mainly veg, the sweet potatoes, the brown rice, the quinoa, buckwheat, brown rice, pasta, that kind of stuff, whole wheats. So, and keeping those to a minimum, really getting our carbohydrates from as much fruit and veg as we can. And then the way to supply some support for your estrogen levels, if you're not taking HRT, is to include phytoestrogens in your diet. So these are natural plant compounds that act a bit like your own estrogen. They lock onto your receptors. They kind of trick the body into thinking it's got some estrogen going on, and that's going to help protect your bones, your heart, your brain as you get older, and of course, reduce some of your menopause symptoms. Many types of phytoestrogens in plants, but the main ones that have had the most research done on them are isoflavones found in soy and lignans found in flax seeds. So if you can include some soy in your diet, but make sure it's organic, we don't want any GMO soy, and we want unprocessed soy as much as possible. So no sweeteners in there, no vegetable oils in there. There are some really good quality organic soy milks and yogurts. We don't want the extra sugar in there though. Organic tofu is great. And flax seeds, really helpful as well. The lignans in them really help with the digestion. 1 to 2 tablespoons a day seems to be a really good amount. And you can put them in smoothies, soup, salads, baking. They're pretty tasteless, so put them in anything. Then your vegetables, I want you to eat a rainbow as much as possible. Lots of colourful veg and vary them as much as possible, because your gut microbiome loves to eat lots of different plant nutrients. But the cruciferous vegetables have a really vital role to play in your liver health. They really help to eliminate excess hormones and waste from the liver. So things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, chard, kale, all of that's good stuff, cabbage. And then balance. We talked about the blood sugar roller coaster. And, if you're on this roller coaster, you're going to feel tired, moody, and foggy, but you're also going to be storing fat like crazy as well. And your other hormones are going to suffer too. So we want to make sure that we're on this dotted line rather than the thick black line, which means that we're eating really balanced right from the get-go in the morning. If you eat breakfast, then eat protein and healthy fats, so that you're nice and stable and you don't have those dips. Every time you have a dip, cortisol is released, so it keeps us stressed. You get a craving and you're going to feel moody, foggy, bloated. So really important to try and stay on that dotted line, and that's going to go through the night as well and help you sleep. Hormone disrupting foods, we all know what they are: sugar, refined carbs, processed foods, vegetable oils, and alcohol. I won't go into that because I'm pretty sure you're going to be knowledgeable about that stuff. Supplements I'm really keen on as we get older, because we don't absorb our nutrients as well as we used to. We may not be getting a full nutrient spectrum in our diets. And, our food isn't as nutritious as it used to be. So there's many, many reasons and we're all stressed as well, which depletes certain nutrients. So for me, it makes sense to top up your levels and make sure you've got a good multivitamin going on with active B vitamins in there, your vitamin D, and with K, I like to put K in it. Omega-3 fats, EPA and DHA, particularly really, really important for your brain health as you get older. Vitamin C, it's a potent antioxidant as well as immune system regulator, and magnesium is generally an all-around hormone friend. Step 2 is rest. Now, I talked about the multiple effects of cortisol if it's out of balance, especially on all your other hormones, basically suppresses them. So it's an absolute priority to get stress management into your daily life if you want to have balanced hormones. Now, we all can't go on a beach holiday every week. So we do need to put some time in and thought into what we are going to do to switch off that cortisol response. If we can just get 10 to 20 minutes a day for some self-care, it's so important to do this daily and schedule it so that it's a non-negotiable part of your day. Because a lot of women, we put ourselves last, we look after everyone else, and when we don't get around to actually doing anything for ourselves. So we have to flip that script, make sure we're at the top so that we are actually going to be able to help other people. It's just filling your cup, isn't it? So whether that's for you, whether taking a nice bath or doing some mindfulness meditation, going for a walk in nature, listening to some music that you love, reading a book, it all counts. It all switches off your stress response. So doing whatever it is that floats your boat, do it, but do it daily. And then sleep has to be prioritized. And it's something that, we can struggle with when we go through hormone imbalances. But there's lots of things that we may not be aware of that could be interrupting our sleep. So getting to bed nice and early, getting rid of the gadgets and the artificial lights in the room, because we want that melatonin production, and any light is going to impact that. Looking at the temperature of the room as well. We need it nice and cool. We want a nice relaxing routine before we go to bed. We don't want to be eating within an hour, go to bed. All of that stuff can help you increase your melatonin and regulate your sleep-wake cycle, which is so important for your general health, but also how you feel on a day-to-day basis. Step 3 is cleanse. And this is all about minimizing your exposure to those endocrine disrupting chemicals. I call them our invisible hormone wreckers. They're all around us. And we can't all go around in gas masks, but there are lots of ways we can still protect ourselves. So eating organic wherever possible. Pesticides, we know, are known hormone disruptors and other things too. But when we're looking at hormones, we want to try and minimize those pesticides. So eating organic, you don't have to worry too much about stuff with skins on, but when you're eating the produce, where the outer skin has been possibly sprayed, then eating organic there is going to help. BPA plastic, we know microplastics are everywhere as well. So really trying to switch to glass or stainless steel, swapping fragrance or parfum on anything in your personal products or laundry or cleaning products is going to be really helpful. There's lots of new brands out there that have natural and safe ingredients. We're looking for phthalates. Phthalates are the worst endocrine disruptors in terms of personal and household products. So that's your scented candles, your air fresheners and things like that. If we can swap those to natural ones or just get rid of them and just open a window, you're going to be doing your hormones a favor. And then last of the steps is move. You want to find that right routine for you. It's going to be different for everybody, but try to include my 3 S's: sweat, strengthen, and stretch. And you're going to get ultimate mobility, strength, and flexibility from that. We want to be making sure we're doing some strength training, because so important for women after 40 is to retain your muscle mass, because that's what kind of regulates your metabolism as well. It's so important. And lastly, getting out of your seat, basically. This is NEAT. It's short for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It's the calories you burn, not just doing normal daily activities that's not formal exercise. So things like getting up, walking, standing around, cooking, dancing, housework, taking the stairs, all of that stuff is part of this daily movement that we need to be doing to be boosting our metabolism. And it's actually a really effective way of increasing that metabolism and actually losing weight as well. But, it basically gets us out of sitting, which we know is a health hazard these days. So again, have a think about which one area you might need to do a bit more work on, because often we've got, the diet down, maybe we're exercising, but maybe not doing enough on our stress management or our environment, or it might be different for you completely. So with the right information, you can make changes in all of these 4 key areas. And remember, looking after yourself is not selfish. Think about who else in your life would benefit from you being at your best. And, you know, women are at the center of our communities, our families, our work situations. So we really need to keep it together and focus on our own health and well-being before serving others. That's it. Thank you so much. Michael, are you still with me?
Of course. No, it was great. Thank you. You can end. Yeah, there you go. Thank you for that. And it's a great primer for, like, I think there's so many women who can relate to a lot of your story and the symptoms and the signs, and probably were watching those slides thinking, oh yes, check. But then they don't, it can be really overwhelming to go on the internet now. It's probably different than when you were trying to look for information, because then there may have been a lack of information, and now there's a lot of information, like an endless, literally, if you go to Google and type in, like, I don't know, correct my hormones or something, you're going to get like 52,000 hits, and it can get really overwhelming. And I think this is a really succinct way to kind of introduce women to the factors that influence how they're feeling, and like the role especially those big four hormones play, and then some really simple action steps to get started. It doesn't have to be super complex, I think. And I know that my own evolution in helping people with their health went from doing the basic stuff, because that's all I knew how to do, to then getting more and more complex with the lab testing and the supplements and the protocols, and thinking everything needs to be this like super complex situation, because the biochemistry is really complex, and you can manipulate little things of it, and it could get really in the weeds. But the more I've learned, and the more I've listened to really smart people, and the more I've talked to people who have been through their own healing journey, I think I've come kind of full circle with that, to where it's the foundational things that are the biggest needle movers. I think, what do you think about that?
I think we forget about the basics sometimes. We're all looking for the most advanced supplement out there, and we're not drinking enough water. I mean, you know what I mean? We forget the real basics, because we think we've got that nailed, but actually most of us haven't. And we just remember the basics, because they're important.
I like that example, because I would have clients come in. I haven't worked one-on-one with health clients in a while, but when I did, they would come in and be like, I want to run these 3 tests. I'm interested in this supplement protocol. I want to do a protocol for this. I want to do a protocol for this. And I'd say, like, what time do you go to bed? And, what's your day like? Like, what is your job like? What's your relationship like? Like, what's your life at home like? Like, what products do you use on your body? You mentioned that cleanse. There's so many. We have a whole presentation in this masterclass about endocrine disrupting chemicals from Laura Adler. You mentioned testing. If somebody wants to learn more about testing, we have Dr. Liz Bartman going really into all the different forms of hormone testing, and like what's best for which hormones. I saw genetics testing on that same slide. We have a presentation from Jacqueline Downs, who gets into nutrigenomics related to hormones. And you mentioned thyroid testing, and Ina Toppler goes into thyroid testing in pretty in depth. I just wanted to kind of hit, I think there's a lot of topics in your presentation that if people want to go down little rabbit holes for that, those are those spots. But I think that starting points don't need to be this like whirlwind of, I need to do these 119 new things starting, tomorrow. Yeah. I'm sure when you work with or coach or teach women, you're not trying to get them to do tomorrow. Your life is these 107 new things and these supplements and this and this and this, right? Like, how do you approach that if somebody's kind of starting from scratch?
Yeah, like you said, you just go through their routine every day. What's their life like? How are they sleeping? What's their stress like? Let's get the basics sorted, and then we can look at what else we can do to optimize. But if those basics aren't there, whatever you're doing later down the line, they're not going to have a big impact. So, start from scratch, really.
That's great. You mentioned that they're starting to use bioidentical hormones at the NHS in the UK. I don't honestly know the situation in the US. I would be shocked if that were the case, at least if you're going through the conventional healthcare situation. I think a lot of people kind of got to go outside of that to be able to access that kind of thing, but definitely with somebody, don't try to DIY hormone replacement therapy to everybody
Yeah.
out there. Please work with trained professionals on that. And then, yeah, I don't really have a lot of questions. I love the kind of code. I think you called it code, happy hormone code that you put together. And I think a lot of those things just really, really get ignored. I think that, or they want to be bypassed. I see these like, what can I take to make it so I'm not tired if I only get 4 hours of sleep in a night?
Yeah.
Or, questions like that. And
What is the pill to anti-stress pill, please? Yeah.
yeah, my life's like out of control, stressful. What can I take so that doesn't affect me? And it's like,
Yeah.
yes, there are things that you can do and stuff you can take that may help in acute situations where that, is going on, but that's not sustainable. Like it won't, like I like how you said it won't, outweigh, having all the foundations out of whack. And I think that's not what a lot of people want to hear in our modern culture, that they can't just take a couple pills and
Yeah.
it'll override sedentary lifestyle, high stress, no sleep, like eating tons of processed food, picking up fast food on the way home, like doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that was
really
my kind of
what
like what I wanted to say about HRT. It's, it's great to take it and replace those missing hormones, but it's not going to do anything for your stress levels or your thyroid or your blood sugar or anything like that. It's just not going to affect those things. And the flip side of that is if you are taking it and you're doing everything, you're ignoring all of that stuff, your HRT is not going to work as well either. So there's a double effect going on. So you do need to do the work.
From my understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And hormone replacement therapy, I mean, it can even become, detrimental in certain situations too. If somebody has certain issues with, hormone metabolism or detoxification or super toxic or, so it's definitely, everything is to build on the foundations, not to try to override them or outweigh them, or we can't defeat nature and how we're designed. And really hormones to me are kind of like canary in the coal mine situation, where they get out of whack when we're living out of whack, like when we're living out of alignment. I watched this wasting time this morning on some social media. I saw a video pop up, and speaking of stress, and there was a video pop up on a podcast. It was like a clip, and it was a guy talking about how we are a perfect evolutionary match for the environment and the life that our physiology was designed to live in, like rising and falling with the sun, like tons of exposure to nature, lots of movement, eating real actual food, having acute stress that our body can then recover from, not having like daily barrage of knowing all of the world's information at one time, or anything else like that. And that, the further we get away from that, it appears that our body is like, failing or not adjusting well, and all the different things that it's trying to adjust to that we're doing to it, it's actually doing quite amazing. But he talked about, it's like the deviation from that is what leads to these cascades. And then we think, oh, my body sucks, it's doing all this. It's like, actually, it's doing pretty remarkably well, given the fact that we're living like completely differently than it is supposed to or wants to.
Yeah.
But
it's incredible how we're still
code
here.
brings us back to that in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It is pretty remarkable. It is pretty remarkable what it's able to take on and what it's able to do and what it can survive. So I think seeing it that way too, instead of seeing it as, this enemy or this thing that's failing or this thing you have to fix or whatever, can have a lot of impact too on how this healing journey goes.
Oh, totally.
I mentioned your book at the beginning. Where can people find you, and what do you want to share with them if they're interested in learning more about your methods here, your code, your book, anything else?
Yeah, go to the website, happyhormonesforlife.com, forlife.com, and everything's on there. The books, my new book's coming out very shortly. Life After Menopause, for us, older generation. There's free resources on the website too. You can do a little hormone quiz if you're interested in digging deeper into what's going on for you. And yeah, lots of support too. So go check it out.
Great. Thank you so much, Nikki. It was fantastic. I'm grateful that you're part of our masterclass here, and I think a lot of women are going to get a ton out of this presentation, so much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Michael.